Leaders don't speak that way.
Okay.
In fact, responsible leaders do not speak that way.
Anybody who questions GoldBod or BOG, so long as GoldBod is in the conversation, you are going to face personal attacks and insults. But those personal attacks and insults should not distract us. At the very least, the same CEO of GoldBod told us that Dr. Bawumia owned Haptel, and that if any Ghanaian that buys electricity, who loads the unit on their meter, has inherently put money on into the bank account of Dr. Bawumia, which is running his campaign. He said that.
Honorable Inusah Fuseini were one of the most experienced former parliamentarians I work with Ghana. Meaning, Ababedin Komo Edia for Honorable Sammy Gyamfi, Honorable Kwamna Alexander Afenyo-Markin, Omubanke ya Ekosui Ehu. Now, one of the Okosia from day na NPP for a that press conference nana omu can say GoldBod and Abokano. But you see, the Honorable Kwamna Alexander Afenyo-Markin work and say Honorable Sammy Gyamfi wa can say be Edia be good hufi and Runti. Of the neighbor court now seek a redress of that particular issue. And an Honorable Inusah Fuseini or can say, would see Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin's press conference now, or address here now. He was attacking Honorable Sammy Gyamfi personally, because how can you say Omu Eba Bayemua Sammy Gyamfi bill there? We say wa money dim, but everything he was talking about, he was directing it to the GoldBod CEO. But one to say Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin or Bank of Ghana Dinkra ewa that press conference no emu. In this away press conference now what attack Sammy Gyamfi personally. That's also by can say be a can wona wudi kan edit sa defamatory comments no e bae. Inti no no de me gidi say one Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin nya adwen say wode Sammy Gyamfi ebeko court because we say in some Alexander Afenyo-Markin so kan ye no na enye in some e was obi a we minority leader e we say o kan. Because on why minority leader pay and why majority leader so a painty can say experience or experience for our parliamentary proceedings. Watching na we edia for us and wouldn't come be muso e kan sound so na yes sister Akusuya Manu a on so we NPP ni no so can say Honorable Sammy Gyamfi say can some edi go hufia allegedly e ye wo ya okotuna television so can some egu Dr. Bawumia any some NPP members ho efi na wonim says and some na wo kan no enye no kore enso okọ kan ye emankofo etie gina so to aba edima na de wo awudua ye no enne se wutwa wo se emaye nka na se yekoka wasem pe na wakofre nkofo akọhye nkofo achi se omo medidi atem sai ni mo na Honorable Sammy Gyamfi oye no he has no moral right for him to do that and honestly wodi nkomo mayen ko na yenko tie ensem a ye mame one ye papa Inusah Fuseini omo ka edi achire Ghana for me mesrew say unya and subscribe and not subscribe edi ma like video we share ma we no nso oja bi em yakopon shira na won kan
Afenyo-Markin should not be the first to say that there has been personal attacks. He should not be. And I've constantly told him, I mean, when we were in parliament together, that he should always try to take emotions out of his duties as a parliamentarian and particularly as a leader.
Okay.
Because what emotions do is that they becloud thinking. Now, so when I listened to his press conference on this 22 billion, I thought something was fundamentally wrong.
Right.
If you are talking about defamation, the defamation and track of defamation started with that press conference. One, in that press conference, I was left in no doubt that Minority Leader had fixed the blame for the 22 billion cedis on Sammy Gyamfi. I had no doubt about that. In fact, he had even gone ahead to say that Sammy Gyamfi was involved in a crime. That was the reasoning. And that in the event of a change of government, he could not even imagine the bail conditions which Sammy Gyamfi will have to meet to be able to gain his temporary freedom. That is an imputation of crime. And it's defamatory. It's actionable per se. You do not need to prove harm. So, probably we've got defamation and counter defamation. I mean, but if you are taking it from that angle, because no one has the right to label another person a criminal without first establishing the crime that has been committed, and then reporting the matter to the police for investigations. To call him a criminal at a press conference, establish yourself as an investigative body, and come to the conclusion that in the event of a change in government, you cannot even contemplate how much bail conditions will be required and whether Sammy Gyamfi will be able to meet those bail conditions was irresponsible, to say the least. And probably, that's what brought about this whole counter narrative. And let me hasten to add, as somebody who has contributed to the governance of this country, who has been entrusted with the mandate.
But before you go ahead, Honorable, so the minority leader himself actually clarified that statement that you just made, which, per your interpretation and understanding, he was impugning criminality.
Yes, imputation of crime.
Okay. Now, this is what he said. He said the comment was not directed at any particular individual or meant to suggest that GoldBod official had committed a crime. Now, speaking on Good Evening Ghana, Markin explains that he was drawing attention to the treatment of some former government officials who are kindly facing investigations over alleged financial losses to the state. He said, you see, I said it on a lighter note, but I also mean it. Let me explain again. We are dealing with losses. Once the state incurs a loss in implementing a policy, it is a financial loss to the state, and somebody would have to be responsible for decisions taken thereto. Does that change your position?
He said he said it in the gist.
Okay.
He said it on a lighter note.
Right.
But he said it. And we are not Humpty Dumpty. The minority leader is not a Humpty Dumpty.
Right.
When he speaks, we are entitled to interpret what he has said. Okay?
Right.
And so, when he spoke, and I'm happy that he's addressed that part, because as a lawyer, that was that part that troubled me the most. Because there's a constitutional presumption to innocence. There's a constitutional presumption.
Unto proven guilty.
Unto proven guilty. Now, in that statement, it came across to me as if the CEO of GoldBod has done something so terrible, and that the 22 billion was his handiwork, that he was solely responsible. In fact, in that press statement, he never mentioned the Bank of Ghana. And as if he was solely responsible, and that he will pay for it. Leaders don't speak that way.
Okay.
In fact, responsible leaders do not speak that way. You have to always respect the constitutional right of citizens of this country to be presumed innocent until found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction.
Okay.
I've listened at length to Honorable's take on the matter.
Right.
And I align with him on the narrow point, okay, that the $1.7 billion loss sits on the books of BOG.
Right.
However, the IMF says the loss was occasioned by the GDPP.
Fact.
Yeah.
So whether it appears on GoldBod's balance sheet or it appears on BOG's balance sheet,
Right.
we have a right to question what caused the 1.7 billion loss.
Yes.
Valid.
Valid. Yeah.
Who is responsible for the design, the pricing, the implementation, the decisions? If Honorable sits here to say that PMMC transferred its liabilities to GoldBod, it doesn't feed into this conversation because the loss is clear. It's ring-fenced against 2025. 2025, GoldBod was in operations. 2025, GoldBod changed the architecture of PMMC. In becoming GoldBod, as we all heard with the fanfare and everything, Parliament gave it the monopoly right? Sole aggregator, combined as a sole regulator, inclusive of a task force to implement whatever price they set. If we sit here to make this a conversation of Sammy Gyamfi and Afenyo-Markin, we are being disingenuous to the good people of Ghana. 1.7 billion. If you look at the audited report of GoldBod itself, it talks about a $10.8 billion benefit to the country as far as its operations are concerned. Yet, we are well aware of the quantum sum of the equivalent of 133 million cedis, right, that the BOG gave to GoldBod. The minority, as far as we sit here, Honorable is interested.
Actually billion, 135 billion.
Sorry,
Yes.
133 billion.
Yeah.
Thank you. As far as we are concerned sitting here, Honorable is also interested in what is contributing to the loss. I don't think he's running away from that fact.
Yes, I'm interested.
As a former parliamentarian, and if he was in opposition then, he would have asked for a probe into the matter, into an inquiry. Interestingly, this government at Parliament, and of course, they do the bidding of Jubilee House, shut down the inquiry from the minority. So it is not Auntie-Efia sitting at Adenta Market who has to determine where the loss resides. Auntie-Efia should be concerned because taxes will be laid on her and we'll all have to pay. $1.7 billion should be the conversation. You see, I don't want to get into this Afenyo-Markin Sammy Gyamfi fan club because it creates a certain impression. If we are to get into that accusation, Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah first went, stepped into the fray with this conversation when the IMF talked about the $240 million loss in relation to GoldBod, right?
Yeah.
What didn't we hear the same CEO of GoldBod say about him? He's not an accountant. Rubbished him, his experience, his pedigree, even the time he spent in Parliament and the experience he's gathered. Take that fact away from Kojo that he's, an established individual who has experience, even in finance, in economy. He speaks intelligently to it. He rubbished him and said he didn't know what he was saying. Former Deputy Minister of Finance, Abena Osei-Asare, Honorable, also raised questions. They dealt with her the same way. She's incompetent, she's reckless, she's useless, she's silly. They use all sorts of invectives on her. Now, the hilt of it is what Honorable Afenyo-Markin is going through. Complete character assassination. What am I saying? It's establish a pattern. Anybody who questions GoldBod or BOG, so long as GoldBod is in the conversation, you are going to face personal attacks and insults. But those personal attacks and insults should not distract us. At the very least, the same CEO of GoldBod told us that Dr. Bawumia owned Haptel, and that if any Ghanaian that buys electricity, who loads the unit on their meter, has inherently put money on into the bank account of Dr. Bawumia, which is running his campaign. He said that. A lie. This same gentleman was sued by Honorable Dr. Matthew Puku-Prempeh, wasn't he? And for which he won. He went to the appeals court, did he not? In fact, when he went to the appeals court, he didn't proceed till his government came to power, and for which that defamation has been squashed. Has it not? So if a liar tells you to go to court, then it means that he knows the judge. That is what he's essentially saying. Sammy Gyamfi is a known liar. From talking about, who owns Haptel, from even creating scenarios out of thin air about people that he even still sees and greets and shakes. Even defamation on your colleague journalist Kwame Sefakai. And today he's talking about impugning his integrity. He's talking about it's not fair to level accusations again. When did he realize this? at the very least, even his posture in responding to the issues where Ghanaians are concerned. Why are these losses coming? You said you've given us a benefit of $10.8 billion, but there's a loss of $1.7 billion. Why can't we talk about it? Why are you so agitated when that conversation comes? And instead of submitting yourself to Parliament for an inquiry, you take to media houses and radio stations with your PR machinery behind you, and all they amplify is the insults and attacks on the people who are raising meaningful questions. The voter does not care the personal relationship or whatever has transpired between Sammy Gyamfi and Afenyo-Markin. The voter is concerned because 1.7 billion more, 1.7 billion, which is about 1.5% of our GDP. If the program is going so well, why are they reducing the cost? In fact, the cost of that program is 14% of the amount. Honorable, on 25th February 2025, the sitting president told us that we need $1.7 billion to finish Agenda 111. That's what the president told us a year and a half ago, that we need $1.7 billion to finish Agenda 111. Same president is comfortable that somebody is appointed to the Gold Board through his operations has cost the state $1.7 billion.
No,
and it's not concerned.
No. I want you to state.
Yes.
Don't distort.
I will not distort the news. I'm stating the fact. IMF says there's a loss of $1.7 billion. The president should be concerned. Yes, the IMF said the loss arose from the domestic gold purchase program.
Who runs that policy?
Oh.
Yes. You see, in other issues, if
you want to take the young man out of that conversation, then you are wrong, because GoldBod runs an operation. What do they do? GoldBod took $133 billion to run an operation and brought back less back to BOG. It sits on the books of BOG.
What?
What occasioned the loss?